Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile video. In this one, we're going to talk about the Dancing Dervish, which is the new rework of the Fated version Dancing Duo that we'll see in 3.17. Now, there was some speculations if this weapon would be farmable from bosses like Arsenal and whatnot, but basically the information that we have received so far is that this will be part of the core drop pool, which means we can drop it anywhere after level 59 area levels, or area level 59. However, we can't say for sure until we see the patch notes, but assuming they won't change anything of that, this is going to be part of the core drop pool. So some changes have been happening, and comparing the Dancing Dervish reworked with the old Dancing Duo, they have 130 to 160 fist damage, whereas this one is showing 150, so we are assuming that's not changed to the same dynamic values. Same thing with the attack speed going from 25 to 30, and the movement speed is static, which seems to be the same on the new version. Triggers level 50 manifest Dancing Dervishes is in plural, so we are assuming that we're going to be in a position where we are going to have two weapons again, compared to the Dancing Duo having a separate actual modifier. Saying manifest Dancing Dervish also manifests a copy. I think it's just packed in by having it in plural. And then it's manifested Dancing Dervishes disables both weapon slots, which is the same, and manifested Dancing Dervishes die when Rampage ends is basically the same. So to our understanding, this modifier here is just baked in the fact that they're using this in plural here, and then they have two changes to this. Now, if these are good or not, we are not so sure. It says melee hits counts as Rampage kills, whereas the Dancing Duo, it said Rampage. Now, to understand if this is a buff or a nerf, we first have to understand what the actual sword is doing. So first things first, the Dancing Dancing Duo in the original version that we have in the current state of the game before 3.17, what it does is that as soon as you get 15 stacks of Rampage, which is what you need to start the Rampage effect, to then disable your weapon, and the weapons would have then be spawned as minions. Basically, it required you, your minions, or your skills to kill enemies. Once they have killed enemies, or writhing jar worms, for example, you would then have Rampage going, and therefore you would be able to have the weapons out. And then there is what most of us would refer to as a hidden modifier, making the sword stack Rampage on 25% chance on hit versus unique targets. It is not a hidden modifier, but we are going to refer to it as hidden because it is not an ability that's on the sword, because once the sword is disabled, you don't have the sword anymore at all, and the minion itself don't get the stats on the sword because they have a skill and they are their own skill. And the skill itself has this modifier, which you can see actually in the description of if you hover over the skill in game. So it's not a hidden, but everyone will refer to it as hidden. Sorry, Mark, that's just the way we're going to explain this. Which also means that the minion itself don't get Rampage, because minions cannot have Rampage. We can. Back in patch 2.2, they removed any buff the minions would get from Rampage as well. So what does this mean? What does it mean? Well, Rampage is gone. So since we don't have access to Rampage, there are two solutions for us to start Rampage, because we have to start one Rampage stack. And once you have one Rampage stack, then you can get infinite amount of Rampage stacks, no matter if you have Rampage or not. This is commonly abused, or have been commonly abused in the past, by either using the sword or equipping yourself with Bisco's Leash and getting a kill. And Bisco's Leash is a belt that gives Rampage as well. Getting one kill and then switching that item and then playing whatever build you're playing, because every kill after that will then give you Rampage, and then at 15 stacks the Rampage effects will start, and you'll start seeing the counter. And before that, the counter is actually hidden. So what does this mean for this build? Well, first off, we are not able to use Writhing Jars as a start to summon our weapons, unless you hit the worms with the actual sword yourself, like Cyclone, Frostblades, and stuff like that. And do keep in mind that hitting Hydrosphere with on-hit effects does not work. This has also been confirmed by Mark here, saying on-hit effects does not work on Hydrosphere in general. That is not an exception to that. So, is this a buff or is it a nerf? Well, for a very niche playstyle, which actually used Cyclone either as a cast while channeling setup or just Cyclone in general, as an example, will allow you to actually hit enemies to get the rampage kills, because you only need to hit once to get the hidden counter for rampage started, and after which Writhing Jar will then, no matter if it's killed by your side minions such as Golem, Spectres, or your Animate Guardian, will then generate those remaining stacks to get you the rampage. But it does come with a problem that you have to actually hit something before this hidden counter starts. This is fine for the most part with maps, because most of these builds, if not all, are going to be played as an occultist, which is kind of fine to go into packs of enemies even on tier 16. But it does mean that you have to actually move up to the enemies, start cycloning on them, and then you can start using Writhing Jars to ramp up the rampage so that your minions will spawn, or your swords will spawn. This is not something we have needed in the past, because you could actually start a map by spamming out a couple of Writhing Jars. I'm going to show you this in game real quick, because we have a character with this. So without the new version, in the current state of the game 3.16 Scourgely, we are able to do this. We can click on one flask, my minions will kill them. I'll click on the other flask, my minions will kill them. I'll click on the next flask, my minions will kill them. I'm going to rinse and repeat this process with a little bit of timing and waiting for my flask charge to start, because I have a hidden rampage kill counter right now. And soon I will have 15 kills, and there we go. Now I have 15 kills and my rampage has started. And now I can just sustain this because I already have rampage. My weapon is disabled by simply making sure that I get a kill, or having the weapon do a on hit versus unique targets. So this is how you start a rampage. It was comfortable, it was reliable, but most importantly, I didn't need a cyclone setup. Now, the problem that we have with not having rampage, and this being the modifier to start the rampage with, is that we actually have to hit something unless you have an item that gives you rampage. So the two solutions to this: one, you use an item that gives you rampage, because they removed that from the Dancing Dervish, which is terrible, because the items used for that is god awful. Not to mention that the buff doesn't actually give you any minion stats, unless of course they change that in the patch notes. Please do that. And the other problem is that suddenly we're going to have to use Cyclone. Now, the problem with using Cyclone is that, like I mentioned, this is a very niche approach to it, whereas the current best available approaches that we have to Dancing Dervish or Dancing Duo is in a situation where we are extremely, and when I say extremely, I cannot stress how extremely socket starved this build already is. It is ridiculously socket starved. And we're like, normally minion builds are socket starved, but like, you wouldn't even believe, if you haven't played this build before, how socket starved it is. We're talking about minimizing the usage of tons of utility just to get fundamental pieces into the build. Now we're going to have to get in a Cyclone or a Frostblade to work, where the best option would literally be to weapon swap or gem swap that, where we would maybe drop our Desecrates so that we can Cyclone on a target, and then once we've gotten those first initial kills, then we can switch back the Desecrate into the Cyclone, which means that we actually have to gem swap to start playing the actual build. Now, I know a lot of people hate doing gem swaps in general, and to be able to every single map, and even worse versus bosses like Zeros, have to actually gem swap to start the build, to actually play it, is terrible. So this is, to the very few niche approaches that actually use a Cyclone, it's kind of a buff. But for any other build and the current best way of playing this build, it's directly a nerf to it. And since we haven't seen what the numbers will be, but we are assuming, based on what we've seen here, the numerical dynamic modifiers and the values here are going to be the same as we have from Dancing Duo. Honestly, the only thing that's happening is that it just gets really annoying to use compared to how it was before, and I don't understand that. So that's basically the TLDR with what's happening with Dancing Dervish and all the fundamental mechanics. Hope you guys learned something from this video. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe and keep rocking.